they're speaking. And we just want to help you understand that sometimes new things come and go, but we believe this is going to be a practice that's really going to change what happens for the students in our schools. So I'd like to introduce our first person here to get us started.
Hello, I am Dr. Yolanda Statham, and I am the assistant principal at Ruby Major Elementary. So I'm here to kind of just introduce you a little bit to what we're calling RTI. So the big thing to know is our district has made a commitment to focus on personalized learning for all of our students. We want all of our students to meet high levels of achievement. We want all of our students to grow academically, socially, emotionally, and to be empowered to make decisions that will help them to reach their goal. So the Tennessee framework of response to instruction and intervention is going to provide that support to make sure we have personalized learning in all of our schools. You can see on the slide, personalized learning. Our level of change is personalized learning that we want to make sure values every student's contributions, raises that academic rigor, sets high expectations for all students, customizes the content and instruction to meet students' diverse strengths, needs, and interests, and also strengthens relationships that brings in that social and emotional learning. So, what is RTI, or Response to Instruction and Intervention? Sometimes you may hear it called RTI squared or RTI 2, so it has a few names. But what is it? It is a multi-tiered, data-driven, problem-solving model to identify students' needs in learning, reading, writing, and math skills, and it provides interventions for those students as needed. It will be used for all students in kindergarten through grade 8. Here in Tennessee, it's going to begin in the 2014-15 school year, and yes, it does support those Common Core standards. So this focus on the student's ability to be able to apply basic skills in reading, written expression, and math is also going to enhance their achievement in Common Core.
My name is Jerry Altieri. I'm a coordinator of special education here in the district. Basically, RTI squared came about in 2004 when the federal government reauthorized the Individuals with Disabilities Act. When they reauthorized the act, there was an emphasis put on early intervention so that students are being caught with their deficits before they went to special education. It was, instead of doing a wait and see model, it was a model built on trying to provide interventions at an early stage. In 2013, Tennessee adopted response to intervention along with many other states so that we would now have a framework in place for Tennessee of response to intervention. The response to intervention program in Tennessee will start with K-4 this year with 5 through 8 implementing a multi-tiered support, and our 9 through 12 being a pilot to support multi-tiered intervention in schools. So what you're going to be seeing is an intervention that's based on early intervention. You're going to be seeing students in Tier 1 being general education. You're going to see students progressing through the models as it goes through to different tiers. So a little bit of history came from 2004, 2012. Tennessee adopted it, put it in place. The State Board of Education adopted it. Districts were mandated to put it into place in Tennessee. There are waivers. You're going to be seeing it, and it's going to be a good thing for students in that early intervention will become primary before looking at certification for students with disabilities.
I like to teach with something in my hands, so I want to share something with you as we go through the next couple of slides. RTI squared is going to support Common Core, and if you've looked much at Common Core, it's more than the basic reading and writing that a lot of us grew up with. It is taking those skills and applying them and being able to transfer them to other things. So the students really have to have these skills and be fluent at them. So we're going to use the analogy of this rope as being an anchor standard for Common Core. And you can see this rope has, as in the illustration, it's got other pieces of the rope that make it up. And so this is our anchor standard, and then these strands then are the standards that we're going to teach at grade levels. So let's follow one of these strands down. So we've got the anchor standard, and let's look at a literacy standard and analyze how and why individuals, events, or ideas develop and interact over the course of a text. So if we're going to think about reading, we've got these 3 literacy standards here. One is about describing the characters, one's about describing relationships, and then this one here at the bottom, how to know and apply grade level phonics and word analysis skills and decoding words. We're going to follow that down a little bit deeper, because when you look at this rope with those 3 standards, this rope is made up of many fibers. So let's take a look at what those fibers are that make up the decoding skills. So again, thinking about 3rd grade literacy, we want to apply those phonics and word analysis skills to decode words. These are then the actual discrete skills that it takes to make up that. So we want to make sure that as our kids get these anchor standards, they're able to put these skills together and have a really strong foundation to be able to read and apply and learn from their reading. Lost track of my guide here. Okay, this diagram describes Tennessee's framework for helping students master these skills, and this is a symbol that you'll see many times. Tennessee's model is many-tiered, and we want to make sure that this model is supported by effective leadership in the schools, a collaborative culture, and also just that early prevention. We don't want kids to move from grade to grade without having those skills that they need, because that's what's going to make the frustration and make kids just kind of give up, and we don't want that. We want them to strive and really do well. So this model also is based on Tier 1, which is where all the students receive their Common Core instruction in literacy and math. And ideally, all of the students will be participating, but this will meet the needs of about 80 to 85% of the kids, which means maybe 15 to 20% are going to need a little bit more in order to achieve those skills. So that's when we start differentiating our instruction, and then Tier 2 will be some students that are a little bit behind, and Tier 3 will be for the students that have the most need. They need more time and they need more practice with those skills. One thing we want to make sure everybody understands is that this is not a special ed initiative. This is a general education initiative. We're working to strengthen learning for all of our students, and that's why we've been able to take this state plan and make it into something that really matches what our philosophy is here in Metro Schools about personalized learning. So you've got some points there to take a look at that we want to make sure we're personalizing the learning for all students. And this year coming up, it'll be in kindergarten through grade 8 and for identified students in high school. So we don't want to leave the high schools out, but we're not quite developed enough yet to go there. Also, this one, we want to support the students to access the curriculum in Tier 1 where all of the students will be learning. We don't want students to miss that instruction that goes on in Tier 1, because that's what we need for our future citizens. And we don't want to leave any of our students behind. And this, again, is for all students to work on targeted skills and standards. If they have their literacy skills and if they have their numeracy skills, there's nothing that's going to hold them back. So we've got to make sure they have those basic skills. And again, just a little bit of a review. It is about general education. And again, that's one of the strongest messages I want you to understand, that this is for all kids. It's not just for kids that are a little bit behind, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. We're going to meet the needs of all kids. But we want to make sure that what we give in the classroom, this is really high-quality instruction, that we're making these decisions based on data, and we'll talk in a few minutes about how we do that. We want this to be about our kids. So again, just remember that as we go through the rest of the slides. We're trying to frame this so it meets the needs of all kids and not leave anybody out. This is where we're going to talk a little bit about how we meet the needs of all children. And as I said in the last couple of slides, that all of our students will be participating in what we call Tier 1. This is where they receive instruction in Common Core standards, the regular content for reading and writing and math skills for their grade level. This is where that's going to happen. We're going to be able to take a look at what skills they are fluent in, which skills they're really solid in, and which skills they don't have, and they need more help in. And to do this, we're going to take a look at what's called a screener in a few minutes. But with the data from the screener, it will help us determine what kind of support we're going to provide for them. We're calling this personalized learning time because we're going to be able to give time to the students to get what they need. Some students will be able to participate in 30 to 60 minutes of enrichment a day. Some students will have more time to work on the standards, the Common Core standards. Some students will be able to get some more intervention on the skills that they have deficits in or that they're not strong in. And then for our English language learners, they'll be able to have some extra time each day working on their English skills if that's what they need. We're going to take a look at the decision-making progress. And remember, a few seconds ago, I mentioned the fact that we're going to use something called a universal screener to help us see which skills the students have and which skills they need help on. So that's one of the first things that's going to happen. It will happen the first 5 weeks of the year. The students will participate in this process where they'll receive a very brief screener for oral reading, for comprehension, math, computation, math application, and writing. And when we say brief, we're talking about maybe 2 to 5 minutes on an assessment, very short assessment. Sometimes the assessments are given one-on-one, sometimes they're given paper and pencil. But that will kind of help us see what the children know and do they know what they need to begin the grade level. Our students are going to kind of fall into some groups, and for the students that are above the 90th percentile, those will be the ones that will start receiving extra time in enrichment, because what that means is they've got those skills, so we need to give them something more. For the students that are in the middle, we want to make sure they have more time on the grade level standards. So that will be just like a little bit of reteaching, extra work to go deeper, make sure they really own those standards. And for the students that are in the lowest group, sometimes that means that they're going to have they're going to need help with their skills because their skills might be 1 or 2 grade levels below where they need to be. And we want to make sure that they actually have the skills that they need. So they're going to get 30 minutes to 60 minutes a day, reinforcing those skills and helping them become stronger with that. But everybody is going to participate in what we call Tier 1. And this is where, again, they're going to be taught the Common Core standards, and differentiation's going to happen there. Maybe we've got a child that still doesn't have those basic skills, but the teacher's going to help them learn those standards, but maybe at a little bit of a lower level as far as the skills that are applied. This Tier 1 is going to be managed by ongoing formative assessment, and that's just the normal things that teachers do every day, checks for learning. Very authentic as far as what's happening, maybe just a quiz at the end of the week so the teacher knows what to reteach or what to represent. So we're not talking about any high-stakes testing here. This is all what we call formative assessment, just to help guide the teacher in knowing what that student needs help with. So we're not talking about TCAP here. We're not talking about anything that strict or that hard or that time-consuming. These are all short checks just to make sure the students are learning as we're going along. And so then at the end of Tier 1 then, we're going to let the students go to different types of personalized learning groups. Remember, the kids that are scoring at least above the 90th percentile will go to enrichment, and the other kids will go to either more teaching on the standards or maybe going down into that level where they're going to have help with their basic skills. So the students that are struggling with their skills, they're going to be in what we call either Tier 2 or Tier 3 intervention. And intervention's the word that we're going to start using whenever we talk about a skill deficit. When we're talking about standards, we're going to say we're going to reteach them the standards because that's what we've been doing in Tier 1. But if we're talking about skills that they're missing, remember those fibers on the rope, those real thin little skills, we want to make sure they've got all those skills. So that's what we call intervention. So some students will go into Tier 2, and we'll be working with them for at least 30 minutes a day to help them get those skills that maybe they missed in a prior grade or maybe even the grade before. We want to make sure they've got a real strong foundation for those skills. We're going to do something called progress monitoring, which is where we're going to check and make sure that they're benefiting from the intervention on the skills that they're receiving help with. We don't want to be wasting their time and not making a difference for them. So we want to make sure we're actually getting to what they need to know. And parents are going to get, if your student's in Tier 2, you're going to get a report home every 5 weeks that tells you what that student's been doing. And you can always ask before 5 weeks, but we'll be sending something home each 5 weeks to let you know for sure how that child's doing, because we want you to be aware of what's happening and celebrate the growth. And if a child's not making the growth we want them to make, then we want to be able to sit down at the table with you and say, let's see if we can get together and find another way to help the child. On the sides? Okay. No, that's okay. We might have to look over here. Okay. And if you'll forgive me, I'm going to stand up here at my monitor so I can see a little better. I just want to introduce you to what's called Tier 3, and this is going to be for the students who have the greatest deficit as far as skills. And a student in Tier 3, maybe they're at the place where they're 1 or 2 grade levels behind on the skills that they actually need to be able to do the work. So a 3rd grader struggling in 3rd grade, if that child's in Tier 3, that means that maybe there's some 1st grade skills that they're missing. Maybe it's some blending. Maybe it's something about long and short vowels. That's where we're going to be able to have the time to help them and build those skills up. And again, the same thing's true. Parents will get a report every 5 weeks about how well the child's doing. Is the intervention working? And if it's not, let's sit down and find another way to help the child. One thing that I want to tell you about, too, is the fact that we have something called Esteems, support teams, and that's a time whenever parents and teachers can sit down together. It's not an organized parent conference. It's a time to come in, and you can ask your teacher, if you want an S-team, let's sit down and talk about what's going on with my child. You know, maybe something's just not working the way we want it to, and this could be about attendance. This could be maybe just about behavior. It could be anything. But these are the major reasons that we have S-team meetings for health concerns, mental health concerns, attendance, conduct. When we, and it used to be we had meetings like this whenever we thought a child maybe had a learning disability. But now what we're going to be doing with RTII is trying to address those learning disability needs in an intervention before we come to an S-team. So we want to make sure we're not making a judgment error and saying that a child needs special education before they really do. We want to make sure we're providing that support in time to make a difference so there's not a big gap that happens. This is the vision that we have, and I hope it's something that that's important to you too, and I know it is because you're here, but we want to change and improve the things that we're doing every day in the classroom. Some things are working well for a lot of kids, but then there's some kids that we just need to make things work better for, and that's what we're hoping that RTI 2 will do, is really make a difference for sometimes kids that that we miss along the way, and that's a terrible thing for an educator to say, but I'm saying it as a teacher and as a principal and as a school leader. Sometimes we miss kids, and it's just the wrong thing to do, and we want to do things better. And so I really believe that RTI 2 is going to help us do that. It's going to be a systematic, organized way to do this in the schools. And it's really going to change the teaching that goes on. It's going to help our leadership take more responsibility for what goes on in the school. And also it's going to provide students with the equity and excellence that we owe them. And as these things happen, our student success is going to increase, and we'll be able to hit those goals of making sure that every one of our children is ready for college and career, because we've helped them achieve, grow, and we've empowered them to be the students we want them to be and the future citizens. So that's a little bit about RTI, what's coming as the new school year starts. I'm sure you'll hear it mentioned in your schools whenever you go for parent orientation when school starts, and you'll maybe hear your kids talk about it. Every child will have 30 to 60 minutes of time during the day once this gets started where the learning will be just for them. And that's what we think the powerful part of it is. And some schools will maybe call it RTI time. Some schools might call it the power hour. You know, schools might have different names for it. And we don't want any child to think that it's, oh, I got to go to intervention. We want all children to see, while this is a time that's just for me, this is a time when I can grow and I can achieve, and I can feel that success and see myself as a learner. So I'd be very happy to, we've got a great team here. We've been working on this for a year, and this is a state initiative, but we've taken it and we've made it work for Metro. And we really have attached it to Metro's vision for what we want our schools to be. This is our first year. It will get better. A couple districts around us have done this. Murfreesboro City has done this now for 4 years, and they've had amazing results with what they've been able to do as far as helping students achieve. So our first year won't be stellar, but I think we'll definitely see some changes in what happens for kids. And each year we're going to get better and stronger. And again, this will be K-8 this year. In elementary schools, this will be the way we also determine whether or not a child has a learning disability. We won't be doing the testing anymore that we used to do. We're going to be looking and seeing, this child's been in intervention. Maybe they're not responding. Let's change the intervention. And we're going to keep trying until we find something that works before we say that a child has a learning disability. In middle school, we're going to go through the interventions. We're still going to keep that discrepancy model for middle school because we want to improve our interventions in middle school. So next year at this time, then the middle schools will be operating just like the elementary schools. So this is kind of, the biggest thing is we're personalizing learning for kids, but the secondary piece is this will be the new way that we determine whether or not a child has a learning disability. We're not going to wait for them to fail anymore. We're going to provide the intervention to make sure it's really truly a learning disability, not a problem on our part that we haven't taught a child. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions. We've got the team here with a lot of experts that can help answer any of your questions. Sharon?
I've got a couple of questions. Our school is something along these lines at Berry, so maybe you're not sure they were taking kids that they knew had issues and bringing them back. I can't remember the part of it. And the students very quickly figured out who was the behind group, who was the ahead group, and and knew that. And it was just kind of, I'm wondering, have you had that discussion with administrators and educators of how to address that so the kids aren't labeled among their peer groups, oh, well, I'm in the high achieving group, or I'm in the, whatever, middle group, or I'm in the not so great group, because it's a big figure out. And then my second question is, you have a child that is, say, advanced in math, but below in reading. How do they get placed? Do they get placed in a tier, or clearly they need extra enrichment for the math, but then the reading they need. So how do they fall out?
Okay. And my team's here too, and I might pass a mic to them, but I want to try to address it, and then we'll see if anybody on the team can help clarify it. We have talked to schools a lot about making sure that everybody understands this is my time, it's my personal time, and it doesn't mean that somebody's better than me or struggling more than me, and that's why we've asked them to, put a different name to it and not call it intervention time. We'll definitely continue to work on that. We won't start this actual process with the students until about the middle of September. We're going to give the schools a chance to really get it. We've got to go through those assessments and then begin to look at data. And then next year at this time, we'll be doing those assessments 3 times a year. Next time this year, we'll already know based on the test they took at the end of May where to start them. So we'll be able to start things sooner next year. But this year, it's going to be a little bit of a longer start. But I would love your feedback. If you find places where the students don't feel comfortable going to their group, so that we can go in and work with the schools if you find that's happening with any of the kids, so we can help that restructuring. And to answer your second question, and then I'll be glad to talk with you too. In elementary school, we've set up 60 minutes for personalized learning time. So they could have 30 minutes maybe in an enrichment piece and then 30 minutes in an intervention. And the teams, the grade level teams, those teachers that know the kids the best will be the ones looking at that data to help design the plans for the students. And that's another reason it's going to take us a little bit to get started this year, because we've not gone through these processes before. So it's our time to learn as educators so that we become more effective at this. And I wish we could start sooner, but this year's just going to be the time when we have the slower start.
I'm working with, I'm in the school teacher. Okay. And I'm here because I'm just curious about how that piece is going to work out. Because it's been stated that you're also supposed to work on one initiative or the other.
In middle school, that's more true, because middle school only has 45 minutes that they could get into their schedule for intervention time. But we were actually meeting with the principals today, and one of the things that we've said is that if a child's receiving intervention on skills, we want to make sure it's embedded into some extra practice with the standards. So in middle school, it's going to look like they're all working on standards, but it'll be differentiated. Some kids will be working on the same standards, but they'll be working at a little bit of a different level that meets their reading skills or helps to grow their reading skills or their math skills. And I'll be glad to spend time with you. I know it's a lot to think about. Okay?
I'm a parent of elementary school kids too, and I'm just kind of curious about how this works in practice. Do the kids, for that 60 minutes, go to separate classrooms and rotate among? Are they physically divided for their intervention time so that the teachers kind of share the students? Okay.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and that's part of that collaborative culture that we really want to help grow even deeper in our schools. If I'm a second grade teacher, these are all of my kids. I mean, they're our kids. So during the intervention time, it will be the teachers providing the interventions, but they'll be working with different groups of students so they can really focus their instruction on what those students need. So, and the schools will be sending home letters saying that, during the power hour, your child will be working with so-and-so. So you'll know then that you've actually got a team working with you and your child, not just one teacher.
And the test will be given by the student's teacher during the school day?
Yeah,
how will that
sure.
work?
No,
Teacher,
that's...
During Dibble's testing, I know at the end of the year, my kindergarten teacher, who was fabulous, was apologizing that she was putting on movies all day so she could get the testing.
No, we're really, and that's something we're very conscientious about. For students in kindergarten and first grade, they'll be tested one-on-one, and they'll be tested with an examiner, not the teacher, because we want consistent results. And these tests are standardized the way that they're given, but they're very short. So they'll be examined one by one, and then the teacher will be able to continue to work with the rest of the class. So there won't be that downtime like there was with Dibbles. And then for students in grades 2 through 8, one test will be given one-on-one, and that's an oral reading fluency test. The rest of the test will be very short, 3 to 5 minutes, given in the classroom by the classroom teacher, and everybody takes the test at the same time. So again, there won't be that downtime. Even whenever we did DEA, there was downtime. And so the assessments are very brief, but they've been research-based, nationally normed, so we have a lot of confidence in what those tests are going to tell us. And these tests aren't measuring a child for a grade, they're just helping us as educators know, here's where this child's strengths are, here's where maybe their challenges are, so now I know how to really differentiate my instruction for that child. So, and we'll get better, I promise, we'll get better.
Replacing the other tests is a good thing.
Yeah, and I guess, the more we do things, the smarter we get about the way we do them. So hopefully this is going to be a movement that eventually will even improve. But right now, this is where we're starting. Joe?
The examiners, Metro employees,
Yes, ma'am.
are they certified teachers?
Yes, ma'am.
And how do they move? Are they itinerant? Do they move from school?
Now, it'll be a school-based team, so if I was still a principal, likely thinking about what my school would look like for that examining team, likely the instructional coach, school librarian, maybe the counselor, people that aren't tied to a classroom all day long, that they see classes come and go. And they'll have special training in how to administer these assessments. The training, some people have already started their training in their schools, and other people will be trained as school begins. But we won't be giving these assessments until at least the second week of school, because we want the children to come in and just feel comfortable about coming to school and get settled before we start pushing them on them.
So in all likelihood, there won't be a stranger to each other. There'll be someone that they see in the building.
Yeah, and kindergarten will be the last group that we do with the assessments, because we want to make sure they have a couple of weeks to get settled and get to know who the librarian is, who the reading specialist is. So we're trying to be, we're really trying to be child-centered in doing this as well, but we need this information to help us really start to differentiate the instruction that the student's going to receive.
My other concern is, it sounds like this is going to be visually we've got a reading block for 2.5 hours, and then we've got a 16-minute either enrichment or intervention block. Is that right? And then we've got painting, art, music, and recess is as important as all these other ideas. So how do we don't want children to miss recess or
No,
art or
we don't.
music in order to have the intervention. How is that?
We've been working on that, and we've been sharing examples with the principals, and a lot of the principals are kind of through the scheduling part now, because they were asked to have their schedules done within the last few weeks and have them approved by their executive directors. The reading is, they have more time, the younger they are, the more time they spend in reading, maybe 150 minutes, which is 2.5 hours. But we're asking the teachers to put the social studies and the science into the literacy part with the students, because with the younger ones, it's a lot about building vocabulary and talking about concepts and exploring them that way. The older students, we've kind of said we need at least that 90 minutes of reading, more if you can do it, but then the intervention time is going to be additional, either reading or math as well. We've really talked to the principals about protecting that recess time, and 15 minutes doesn't seem like a lot, and we're looking for ways to increase that, and I know you're helping us with that, so we appreciate that. But it's trying to, it is a puzzle to get it in, but we have said nobody's losing art, PE, or music, because that's something that's very special about Nashville. Not many school districts can say that their children have those great resources like we have here. So that's protected, and the kids really need that. So it's trying to think about how we integrate maybe some science into the math that we're doing, so that actually, and that's what Common Core says, we need to be integrating those so the kids are applying the skills that we're teaching. It's going to be a challenge, and it's going to be painful, but we've got a commitment, because we think this is really the best thing for our students, to make sure that we're not moving so far ahead that we're leaving kids behind. No, but I appreciate your support on that. That means a lot that you're there with us. Sure.
If your child is already into the program,
Mhm.
and they get pulled out for math or whatever, is this 30 and 60 or and/or 60 minutes on top of that pull-out time that they already received from resource? How does that work?
Okay, that's a good question. Thank you for asking it, and we'll try to answer it. We're looking at, right now as we start this, we don't want them to miss what's going on in Tier 1 because they need that instruction as well. So we're trying to see if we can provide part of that special ed resource time as when the other kids are getting those tier interventions for an hour, then they would be spending time with the exceptional educator to try to meet some of those skills that were identified on their IEPs. So, and again, it's going to be kind of blended, trying to look at what each child's need is, but we want them to have as much opportunity in that Tier 1 class with their peers as we can provide, but yet still meet what's on their IEP. So that'll be a child-by-child decision. And if you need help with that, we're really happy to, work with you and the school to try to make it the best we can make it, because this is new for the schools too, so we're learning together.
We look at special ed as the most intensive service, so that we look at that as a tier 4. So because the child has an IEP, it's already we have.
We look at special ed services as Tier 4. It's the most intensive intervention. So if a child already has an IEP and we know they have a deficit in that math area, they'll go to Tier 4 for that pull-out specially designed instruction.
And I was wondering if the percentages at the bottom of the pie, and the bottom of the top 10%, is that calculated within the school or across the school?
Sure, that's a good question. We struggled with that a lot as a team, trying to decide, looking at what the state was asking us to do and then thinking about what's best for our students here in Metro. So what we've said to people, we had to make some cut points, and so the minimum is they can go to enrichment. We would recommend they go to enrichment if they're at least at the 90th or higher. Maybe in some schools, they might have maybe 5 or 6 students and they want to add more to it, they could. But minimum, the state says we have to serve the students at the 90th percentile. The state had originally asked us to serve students in intervention if they were below the 25th percentile. And we've worked with our Department of Evaluation, and a number of our schools were very concerned that maybe there might be too many students and they wouldn't be able to give them enough support there. And so working with the state, during this first year, we're going to serve students that are below the 16th percentile in Tier 2 and below the 8th percentile in Tier 3. And then next year, we'll need to increase that. But we just want to make sure we get a good, strong start to begin with. And again, we're saying maybe a child, maybe there's a school where there's only 3 or 4 children there, and they could go ahead and add some more children to that if that teacher's a good teacher in providing that intervention. But we've had to set just initially some cuts to begin with. But we want to make sure the schools do what's right for them too. And these are nationally normed percentiles. We can't use local ones or school ones. So that gives us common across the district. Yeah, we want to be effective at what we're doing, yeah. Okay. The guidelines that we have working with the state, and again, we're trying to follow what the state's asking us to do, but we're also asking them to work with us because this is our first year, and they have been very, very supportive. They really have. If a child's in Tier 3, we're looking at really intensive intervention and maybe no more than a teacher with 5 students in Tier 3 because those children need a lot of support, a lot of one-on-one attention. Tier 2, possibly one teacher with maybe up to 12 students in a room. The enrichment and the students that are in the middle group, then their groups might be a little bit bigger because they don't necessarily need as much teacher attention. But if they're in tier 2 or 3, those are the students we want to make sure we make a difference there. So they're going to be in smaller groups, just for that 30 to 60 minutes. Okay. Somebody else had a question?
What is it going to look like for enrichment students? Because enrichment right now for my child is grading teachers' papers.
And that's what we want to get. Yeah, and that's what, I know when my kids were in school, sometimes, not my older two, but my youngest one, she always was somebody else's learning buddy, and that was called enrichment. Yeah, you're right. So, no, and we're very, very excited. One of the departments that's been working with us is Advanced Academics in the Encore program in helping us design this.
Well, that's where y'all come, because my daughter goes to school with mostly Encore students. So she, because of whatever that she took in kindergarten, doesn't get pulled out.
Well, even,
So all we really have is an Armando website. She doesn't want to go and learn by herself. She wants to go back to what you've learned, you know, the architecture of bubbles and making an advertising plan and building cars. You know, she wants to go back to being inspired.
Mhm.
She's no longer inspired at Metro. She sits doing Alex a lot. You know, she waits, she does a lot of Alex, she does a lot of AR, she reads a lot of books. She wants a teacher there that can inspire. And even at a school like where she is, she still doesn't feel inspired.
well, good, you're going to be able to give us some good feedback. I'll ask for your partnership because, like I said, this is new for us. You know, we're going to be at least serving students at the 90th percentile or above, and this is going to be every day. So they're going to be able to work on projects, do research, I mean, actually create things, and there'll be a group of them. There won't just be one student by themselves. So one teacher will be, in each grade level, will be responsible for this. So this is something that'll be day after day after day. So that gives them a chance to go deeper. And they'll be able to, you know, kind of play off of each other too, as far as not being just sitting by themselves looking at a book. There'll be a couple of them together.
Is that on top of their regular projects and work?
This is during that personalized learning time, so they would have that 30 to 60 minutes a day to work on that. It won't be work outside of school. And it'll be, during that time, all of our students will be doing something that just fits what their needs are, so it won't be missing anything or you know, extra work that's due. That's what our vision is, but again, I'd ask for your partnership. You know, if you see that it's not working that way or you can help us with this, I'd appreciate it.
Well, our elementary school had already done it years ago.
Okay.
You know, they got shut down by Metro then. And they separated kids into groups for a week. And it worked fairly well. I mean, it did a pretty good job. My other question is, we take so many tests. I mean, that's pretty much all they do. They either take tests or quizzes or standardized tests, or they get tested, or they get health screenings. I mean, their entire life is not really having like a powerful teacher in front of them teaching them something. It's more, let's figure out what you know. So if you already know the year before, you pretty much know from the student's record where their problems are. Because I went to the assessment meeting last year, and there was a poor teacher that came in. I mean, they have paperwork to fill out front and back of what they know about the student. You pretty much know. Wouldn't it be easier to get, like, put kids in certain classes so that they get that one-on-one all the time? Like, if they really need it, and then have them be able to move, like, you know, if you really get this, you can move to another level instead of, like, having them in a classroom and pulling them out for that 60 minutes, and then having them go to another class, and then pulling them out, you know. I mean, it just seems like a scheduling nightmare, which seems to be a scheduling nightmare at our school. You know, it's just constant chaos, and they're not allowed to, like, go to their locker to get their books, so they have to drag their 70-pound books, like, each class. You know, it just seems like a scheduling problem.
That sounds like you're going to be really a great partner to help give us feedback as we try to move through this and make it better. So I'd really like to stay in contact with you, and I'll give you my card before you leave. Sounds like you've got some valuable information for us. Thank you.
tier 2 and tier 3. So during this intervention block, they would be getting more intense instruction in reading for an hour. Is that correct?
Yeah, the grade level team will be the ones, as they look at the data, to decide, this child maybe needs help in, a little bit of help in math, but they need more help in reading. So that team can design a plan that meets that child's needs, that maybe they would have reading 3 days a week and math 2 days a week. So we really do want to try to personalize this as much as we can, and it's hard to personalize when you're talking about a group of 20 children, but yet if we can at least kind of see what their needs are and then work to provide those needs, because sometimes children have similar needs, so we can group them. But if we can look at how, we make a special schedule for that child. If they've got a little bit of trouble in math and really they need some deep help with reading, then we can make that schedule work without them losing that tier 1 instruction.
First and second grade students, we really maybe some movement and that comes to the
We have that it's got to be age appropriate for sure, but maybe during that hour period they see one teacher for 30 minutes and another teacher that teaches them something else for 30 minutes. So again, it's depending on how the schools, we're just going to have to grow into it, but we have a great vision, and again, we just value your support because you give us questions to think about and try to make it better.
So is there a way, and I'm sure there is, maybe I should ask, what is the way for teachers to give feedback to the administration so that they can say, this part is working, this part isn't, and so that we can continue to tweak it and work out the problems?
We were actually meeting with principals today, and we were talking about what their involvement level needs to be. And one of the big foundation pieces for RTI is that school leadership. So it's really important that the assistant principals and the principals are involved in those data team meetings so the teachers have a chance to give them feedback. And also during this process, we have what are called fidelity checks, where the administrators have to check and see if there's a child that's not making the progress we want them to make. They've got to do 5 fidelity checks to make sure the child's getting the service, to see that it's working, to make sure the child's in school. So we're trying to make sure we cover our bases, but also get that leadership involved. We've got a lot of great team members here, and maybe you're more comfortable talking to somebody one-on-one than you are in front of the group, but I want to thank you for coming. It means a lot that you're here. And again, we're going to count on you for support to help us make this a better product than even what we've thought it is now. So thank you.